In this lesson, we're going to go through the real basics of creating your own instrument using the sampler and any sample that you want to choose. For the course, you can use, of course, anything that comes in these 3 sample packs, or you can use anything you find on freesound.org. So let's say that you really want a guitar. I'm sure people have put up single note plucked guitars, and that would be a perfect sort of thing you could use here when creating your sample based instrument. So we're adding one thing on here, and that's the Voxengo span device. This is just a frequency analyzer or a spectrum analyzer. And the reason we're adding this at this point is because it's going to help us determine what the fundamental frequency is of our sound. So I'm going to use this bowed symbol. It's not really pitched, but it's kind of pitched enough to a point where I can set it up inside there and then repitch things down based on having a root note. And to give you that example, we'll open up the span here. Let's widen this out and take a look at what happens. So on this x-axis, we're looking at the different frequencies, and on the y-axis, we have amplitude. So what I'm looking for is the highest peak, and that normally is going to indicate to me what the fundamental frequency is, because it's the loudest point within that sound. And so the loudest thing is usually what determines its pitch. So here we go. I can hold it out, and whatever we have right here, this looks like it's almost a perfect A sharp. Okay, that peak is right at an A sharp 6, and if I actually go down, here the second highest peak looks like it's right at an A5. So we are actually following somewhat the harmonic series. So this note, like I said, it's somewhat pitched, but as you go up higher, you can see it kind of goes into craziness up here, and you can hear that in the sound also. But I think I'm going to go ahead and use A sharp 5 as my fundamental frequency for this. So let's go ahead and grab another instance of our sampler. And I have to go back to my samples now, bowed symbol number 1, and bring that on in. Where I put this right now doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to stretch it up and down the keyboard. And now if I play it, I'm getting that original playback sound. It's not repitching with the keyboard. It's not keyboard tracked, and that's actually what we want. So what I'm going to do is go into the wave editor, select the sample, and I can set up a root note right here. So I'm going to select that and go to A sharp 5. There's A sharp 6. Let's take this down to A sharp 5. There we go. Now if I go back and play, it's still not key tracking, and the reason for that is because under scale, we have fixed. So this is really saying the scale degree to which we're repitching the notes. So I'm going to take that and go to normal. So now if I'm playing up and down the keyboard, it should, based on it knowing that the root is A sharp 5, which actually it's not showing up as A sharp 5, so I must have selected the wrong thing. There we go. Now I have that right. Now it's at A sharp 5. Now if I play up and down the keyboard, we should hear it repitching. But you'll notice with the lower notes, it's taking a little bit of time for the playback to occur. It's actually playing slower, and that's because this particular sampler is based off of a hardware unit. So it doesn't really have any elaborate time stretching algorithms built in. That's totally fine. It's cool if it's playing a little bit slower. I'm just going to go into the wave editor here, and I'm going to increase the start time, so where the sample is playing back from. So if I go right to the top and not zoom all the way in, but if I go right to the top, we should be. That's sounding pretty cool. So if I wanted to make something that was a little bit more of like, I don't know, like a pluck sound, I should be able to do that by setting up our amplitude envelope here. So I'm just going to slowly increase the release time. If I go too high with this, it's really bleeding over itself. So I may not want to have this in poly mode. Maybe I want to put it in mono. So that sounds pretty cool to me. I might even actually increase the release now. something like that. One thing I am noticing, though, with a sound like this is that there seems to be a little bit too much velocity variation, so I'm just going to bring this down some. Maybe a little more. And we're getting a tiny little click also, so I'm just going to get rid of that. The other thing we can add in is actually a filter envelope. So I can choose low pass, high pass, all these different filter options. I'm going to go with a low pass 12. I'm going to add in a little bit of resonance here. Bring this right on down. And let's create a filter envelope for this sound. So something like this, perhaps. Let's see how this works for us. I'm going to go on in here. I'm going to set the source to be envelope 1, the destination to be the filter cutoff, filter frequency, and then we're just going to set the amount here. So go 24 if we want. So those are really the bare bones basics here of creating a sample-based instrument, and we didn't even have to do that much work on it. So we started with this sound here, and we ended up with, so pretty cool.